comedy movies, and a special guest. Welcome to a new episode of Screen Time with Doug and Kyle.
In an age of entertainment confusion, two men have the answers. It's Screen Time with Doug and It's Screen
Welcome
Time.
everybody
with Doug
to
and Kyle.
my goodness, it's him. It's the guy. Don't don't tell everybody that we got the guy in the back over here. My goodness. Wow. Craziness. Welcome everybody to another episode of Screen Time. The Screen Time. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. See, it's like Kyle with the first. It's his first time on a computer, guys. So let me tell you, I'm just kidding. Welcome to another new episode of Screen Time. I'm Doug. We have Kyle here. Kyle, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I just realized I forgot to turn off the loop button, but here we are anyways. Been having a really good week. How about you guys?
Doing really well. And I want to introduce you to our guest for this evening. We have a special guest. His name is Milt. We'll call him, well, it says Milt, but I call him Milton. I've known him since high school. So that was what, Milton, 1917?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Much. 1984.
1984, 85, something like that.
That's my senior year.
but I went early, so you're never gonna know how old I am. So I went early to high school, and you're never gonna know how old I am. But anyway, we are so glad that you're here, Milton, because
thanks for having me.
We are so excited. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Everything's doing good. Family's doing great. Enjoying. Ready to go on vacation after tomorrow. So I'm doing
excellent.
Well.
Oh, we got you in at the right time.
Yeah, you did.
Wow, I didn't even know you were doing that. Excellent.
Yeah. But all things considered, doing great.
Yeah. That sounds great. We're very excited to have you on. I wanted to have you on because I know that you're kind of a big movie buff. You like movies, so tonight we're going to be talking about comedy movies. Now, this was a really hard decision for me. I know it was very hard for Kyle. I'm pretty sure it was hard for Milton too.
Oh yeah.
To just get together like three movies that we can talk about for 5 seconds. Comedy movies are my favorite genre, so it was very difficult to put together. This is not my favorite list. This is just three movies I decided to talk about that I happen to love. But that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna start. We're gonna do a little like a round robin, round robin. Wait a minute, isn't that your wife's name, Milton?
It is
unbelievable. See, I threw Robin in there just to make sure that we get to make sure that your wife is mentioned. So what we're going to do a little round table kind of thing where we're going to go, kind of one at a time. But I wanted to ask you, Milton, is there anything in particular that you first question first, is there anything in particular that you kind of look at when you go into the theater and you sit down and you're ready for this comedy? Is there anything that you kind of look at that you're like, okay, I'm here for a reason and there's a reason why I'm here?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we take a look at the trailer. I don't pay attention to what the critics say. I don't. My wife and I will say, hey, that looks like it's going to be a funny movie. So we look at the trailer, we see when it goes out. Obviously, we're cheapos. We go to Tuesday night movie night on to AMC, where it's $6 for a good flick.
Perfect.
And if we like, I mean, if we're laughing at any scene, then we know it was funny. So and we also look at who's in the movie. Who are the actors, actresses that are in the movie? If it's a great cast, yes, we got to go see that. Right. So that's my kind of criteria on comedy movies of, look at the trailer, who's in it, when does it come out? Do we see it the first week it comes out, or do we wait and see, what people say? we go by what the public says, not by the critics say. So yeah, that's my criteria.
That's excellent. Kyle, I was going to ask you, what do you have a criteria for comedy movies or movies in general?
I think I kind of agree with you, Milton, especially on the actor front. There are I think a lot of comedy movies for me work when I see especially familiar actors that I know I'm going to laugh at when I watch the movie. But at the same on the other kind of the spectrum too, I also do like to kind of like go and watch a movie that might be more uncharted waters for me. So I do kind of like to kind of do a mix of both, where I want to go see a movie where it's a different kind of humor and I'd really like to try it out. And then of course there's the classics, like you have the Will Ferrells and the and like the Bill Murrays and like those like classic comedies that I just like I know I'm gonna like really like. So yeah, it's kind of a mix of the two in a way. So
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I kind of a combination of both of you actually. I definitely don't listen to the critics because the critics are, they're kind of paid to do what they do, and sometimes most of the time I actually go to the movies that they say are horrible. That's the ones I go to because typically those are actually really good movies. And sometimes, but that's what I look at. I look at, okay, who's in it? The Marvel series, if we're talking about movies, the Marvel movies, you go because of the actors. You go because you want to see these actors and what they're going to do next, and especially if it's sequential, you're going to want to know what's going on and stuff like that. So and then the next one, so it's always, you stay in the movie theater because with the Marvel movies, that there's a trailer at the end. Typically there is a something at the end that you want to make sure that you watch. Some people just leave.
Yep.
And some people kind of just stay because they know that this trailer. The only other movie that I know did that was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where everybody left the movie theater. We're just kind of sitting there, and all of a sudden, Matthew Broderick comes out and says,
"Yeah,
are you guys still here? The movie's over. Go home. Go home." It was just really funny. Yeah. Nobody knew that until one person or several people said, you got to watch wait past the credits and get this. So again, that's kind of what I look at. I look at that kind of criteria is really important, I think.
Yeah, I don't care if your bladder's full, you stay to the end.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta go to the bathroom, hold it until the end because they're not gonna play it back for you.
No.
It's like, you can't just knock on the window and say, hey, can you just roll that back a little bit? Not gonna happen. So I wanted to ask you, Milt, I know we all picked 3 movies. We do have a special movie at the end that Milton wants to talk about, but we all pick like 3 movies. So Milt, I wanted to know what your first movie is that you want to talk about.
Okay, I'm gonna say My Cousin Vinny. I have watched that movie. I can't remember how many times. And I'll tell you why. Marissa Tomei and Ralph Macchio, and especially Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
I think Marissa Tomei got an Oscar for this movie, and some of the scenes that she did, some of the scenes that she did was just hilarious. I think one of the funniest was he's going deer hunting. And then they're in the cabin, and she's walking around in that onesie outfit, tooting around, talking about her biological clock.
Right.
Yeah. And then also when Vinny meets the boys in jail, and Vinny's sleeping. Oh man! So yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've watched that movie. That's one of my. I would have to say that's the top of my list.
Oh yeah,
nice.
No, that totally makes sense. It is hilarious. It's got a terrific cast.
Yeah,
it is very, very funny. And Joe Pesci, I think this was his this is the role that kind of brought him to the forefront, I think, really, of really doing lots more stuff. There she is talking about her biological clock is ticking. It was right there. That was it right there.
Yeah.
And we're not going to if you haven't seen it, I know Milt will say this, you have to go see it, because there is a little bit of a not a surprise ending, but it is an ending that you're like, what? It's one of those, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Kind of endings.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. I have it. I have it on DVD. I have it on my DVR. And it's like
you're covered, man.
Anytime,
if you got a Saturday afternoon that you don't know what to watch, there it is.
I'm watching My Cousin Vinny.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I would have to say that's the top of my list.
It's absolutely hilarious. It's a great movie to watch. I would suggest everybody that's watching this right now, please watch it. And I want to see in the comments. Yeah, I want to see it, find it and watch it. But also comment on tell us what you think of it, and tell us what you think of the ending, because I'm not going to mention what the ending is.
Yeah.
But the ending is kind of like, it's kind of cool. And
it's
like a little surprising. It's like
kind of catch you off guard a bit.
yeah. It's like, what? Yeah, so that's great. That's fabulous. That is the one of the quintessential movies that's out there. It totally makes sense. Kyle, I'm gonna go to you next. What is your first comedy movie that you want to talk about?
So, as I mentioned before, there are certain actors I just love seeing in like reoccurring movies, or like just kind of like seeing him in just like different comedic roles and stuff like that. And sometimes, reoccurring movies in certain cases. And one of those actors is Will Ferrell, and I absolutely love the movie Step Brothers. I think this movie is just and I loved his other movies like Anchorman, Talladega Nights, just great movies, really funny. But Step Brothers to me was just kind of like the magnum opus of all those movies, in my opinion. It's one of the movies where I feel like I've probably quoted the most. There's so many like
it's those one-liners you got to quote.
Yeah.
Like, you don't say that when they're like fighting, and they're so it's basically about these two guys played by Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly. They're these 40-year-old sons of these two different people, one played by Mary Steenburgen and the other person played by Richard Jenkins, who funny enough, just random fact, my sister actually met Richard Jenkins in real life, the guy. So
oh, wow.
So apparently he's a really nice guy, really, really cool guy. But anyways, it's these two guys who basically they move in together because their parents they get married, so they become stepbrothers. And they kind of start off very shaky. They don't like each other, but then throughout the movie, they kind of like create a bond. And then it's a very simple story, but it's very funny because it's full of just all these like really great gags throughout the movie.
I'm just laughing just watching this stuff. This is great.
Oh yeah, these guys are all at the top of their game. And the thing I like about a lot of the movies this movie was directed by Adam McKay, who did Anchorman and Talladega Nights, actually. So he worked with Will Ferrell in a lot of different productions. But and he kind of started this actually in Anchorman, but they did a lot of kind of more improvisational comedy. So a lot of the lines that you hear in the movie, they're literally improvised by the actors on the spot. So it's kind of cool. So it's like, yes, there's there's plenty of scripted moments and stuff like that, but it's funny when you hear them kind of banter, and they just really work. Like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly just really work off each other very well. And it's a movie I just love. It's it's the Catalina wine mixer. there's just so many great just moments. And it's funny because the trailer doesn't even show like all of the other actors that are in the movie. They really show like the core cast, but like there's all these other funny performances too by like actors like Adam Scott, who plays Will Ferrell's character's biological brother. So and it's funny to see these guys interact and just all the crazy situations that they get into. They even start like making a music video on their dad's boat, and I can't really tell the name of the song. It's a little bit inappropriate, but once you kind of like watch the movie, and it's hysterical. It's one of my all-time favorite comedy classics. It's really good.
That looks really funny, and I believe I saw that when it came out. I have
Yeah.
to see this. I have to see this again because I'm not sure if I got it the first time. Maybe I
Yeah.
did. I'm just saying not that I got it, didn't get it. It's maybe that I didn't. I haven't seen it in such a long time. I didn't remember it. So I think that's probably more toward the right thing than the other thing. But it just looks hilarious.
It
It
really
looks
is like
absolutely
very quotable.
hilarious. And actually, I actually will tell you, really honestly, I didn't actually like Will Ferrell very much at first. At
Hmm.
first, I think he's awesome. I think he's incredibly talented. He's very funny. I didn't like him at first. He
Yeah,
did
that's fair.
Saturday Night Live too, right? Did
Yeah,
he
Yes.
he
do
Oh
did.
Saturday
yeah,
Night Live?
that was his big
Yeah.
start
So
at
it was really difficult for me to go from Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, um, all those older John
Steve
Belushi,
Martin.
Steve Martin, all
Yeah.
Yeah.
these incredibly talented comedians. It was really hard for me to go to the next level, to the next set of comedians. But when I saw him in the Christmas movie, he plays an elf, the elf,
Mm.
it's called Elf.
Oh yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah,
I absolutely 100% fell in love with the guy.
yeah,
Absolutely 100% fell in love. And then I'm like, okay, now I want to see his other movies.
yeah.
I was like, this is really cool. So yeah, it's definitely a funny movie. Again, these are movies that we suggest that you go and see. Uh, Absolutely. So excellent, Kyle. Thank you so much. My first movie is I'm going to be talking about a movie that actually came out in 1983. It's by director John Hughes, one of my favorite comedy directors who did a lot of those like tween kinds of movies, other very funny comedies, especially in the 80s, is Mr. Mom.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Mom is hilarious. It is Michael Keaton, it's Terry Garr and Frederick Kohler, and there's some other people that I didn't mention. But it's very, very funny. After he suddenly gets laid off, Jack, who's the husband, switches roles with his wife, who's Terry Garr. She returns to the workforce and he becomes a stay-at-home dad, taking care of 3 children. A job he has absolutely 100% no clue about doing. And it is absolutely funny. There's very, very funny. This is the Rocky scene that I like to talk about a little bit. This is a scene where the kid says, "My sandwich is not hot enough." He plays poker with the girls. It's he grows a beard, and then he has these nightmare dream scenarios.
Yeah.
He beats up the popcorn machine. It's just absolutely hilarious movie. If you have not seen this, I was actually a stay-home dad for almost a year, 11 months. So I can relate to this movie a lot, except I knew a little bit more than he did. Going to one of the funniest scenes when he goes to the supermarket and tries to shop. And his wife does this, so he has no clue what to do. He loses a kid. We're hanging out. He loses one kid. He finally goes up to the deli and he orders ham. And the lady goes through all the hams. And then he goes through the cheeses. Can you just give me a quarter pound of cheese? And then the lady goes through all these cheeses, blue cheese, Swiss cheese, all these cheeses. And you got your entire cheddar family. And he's looking at her like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do. And he says, "Well, can you run by the hams again, please?" It's just everything he does in this movie. This is very typical early Michael Keaton.
Mm.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'm not talking about Batman. I'm talking about early Michael Keaton, where he was very funny. and just absolutely hilarious. And so that's definitely one of my go-tos. I know it's an older movie for some people, but it is absolutely 100% hilarious. And I just like it a lot. So at this time, before we move on, we're going to talk about our sponsors, and our sponsors for this evening.
Screen Time with Doug and Kyle. We'll be right back.
Well then. Sorry about that. I was trying to find the right one.
You're good, man. You're good. We should put a picture up there too. Anyway, so the sponsors for this evening are Simon Organizing and Wes Woodson. So Simon Organizing is if you need to organize a drawer or a closet, contact Simon Organizing. They will help you with that. They will not only help you organize, but they will help you maintain, which is the most important thing in the whole world, is the maintain part. How do I keep this going like it is now, like clean and maintained? That's Simon Organizing. And Wes Woodson. Wes Woodson is a friend of the Screen Time, friend of the show. And he is out on his own personal tour right now, talking about anxiety, talking about depression. He's had it, talking about men who should talk about it because it's a faux pas for men not to talk about it. And he's out doing this college tour all around the country right now. And I think it's really important to get that out there, that he's doing this, and it's super important. I'm going to try to get a where he's at, where he is. So next show I can tell you kind of where he is, and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important. So Simon Organizing and Wes Woodson, thank you so much for sponsoring our show, Screen Time.
Welcome back to Screen Time with Doug and Kyle.
All right, welcome back, and we're going to go to Milt for his next movie.
Okay, I would like to put number 2 as The Heat. I'll tell you why. It was based in Boston. I love Sandra Bullock.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely think Melissa McCarthy is hilarious. And I think one of the funniest scenes is when Melissa McCarthy goes back home and they call her a traitor, and she's talking to her brother. And they are, yeah, that's another funny scene where she's talking to the John over there and everything like that. But one of the things is one of the guys, I think his name is Nate Cordria. I might be pronouncing his name, when he's trying to ask her, what do you do? You anak. I'm sorry, I don't understand you. You, or are you not anak? I think that I keep laughing at that scene because it's the typical Southie accent.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's probably super bad too, because I love these actors who are not from Boston and they try to do the Boston accent, and it's a little close, but not so much.
Yeah. And then there's another scene where she's in the scene with the interviews. Sandra Bullock is interviewing Melissa's prisoner, which she shouldn't have. And then they start fighting. I think you just went through that scene.
Yeah.
And then in the captain's office, where he's like, "Hey, have you seen his nuts? Have you seen his nuts?" And then, of course, the choking scene where she tries to help this guy that's choking on food. She accidentally cuts him in the neck. Yeah, that's another one, the Spanx.
Oh man, that Spanx, yes.
Yeah.
No,
So,
this looks like a really funny movie. Sandra Bullock is one of my favorites. So anything with her in it, I'll probably watch it.
Yeah. So I think that's the second on my list of funniest movies.
That's a great one.
that is definitely a great one. That's definitely a great one. We're gonna add. We might even put these movies on our. I think we're going to do that, but we'll probably add them to our. Well, I want you to watch the episode, so watch the episode so you know.
Yeah.
But we can also put them in the in the well, what do you call it? The description. But if we don't, then please watch. So Kyle, what's your next comedy movie that you want to talk to us about?
So my next comedy movie is kind of to go off a little bit on what we talked about, like improvisational comedy. This one kind of takes it all the way. This is a classic Christopher Guest movie called Best in Show. I'm a huge fan of just pretty much all of Christopher Guest movies, like, ranging all the way back from Spinal Tap, which he technically didn't direct. I think I forget who directed Spinal Tap. It was another guy. It may have actually even been like John Hughes, but I believe.
Oh, is that Eugene Levy?
Yes. Yeah, it's Eugene Levy. So you got the core cast. You have Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Parker Posey, most of whom were they're pretty much all throughout the Christopher Guest movies. Like they're in his other ones, like Waiting for Guffman 2. They're in Mighty Wind. That's another great one too. Just really, they're just great mockumentaries. And they're kind of a fun take on sort of actually what they did on SNL. Actually, Christopher Guest even had a really classic SNL skit he did with Martin Short. It was when they were doing like the synchronized swimming. Do you guys remember that one?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of, I feel like that movie, that skit essentially birthed kind of the style of movie that Christopher Guest did. And and they're all great. I recommend watching all of them, even for your consideration. That was probably one of the more recent ones that came out back in like 2006. But to me, this is like his best movie. Like Best in Show is incredible. Just to the one-liners that actor Fred Willard, but when he was the announcer for the dog show, basically. It's just the movie is basically just about all these crazy dog people who want to come in. They just want to send their dog to the show, and in hopes of getting the grand prize. And they all think their dog is like super special, but they're all crazy. They're all just like really nutty in their own way. Like you have this like Parker Posey and the guy who plays her husband, who are just like really, they're like these overprotective dog parents. And
your description is already like, this is crazy.
Oh yeah, it's great. Like
I've seen that movie. It is funny. I mean, these people are obsessed with their dogs.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It's funny. It's like, it's not a story heavy movie. It's very mockumentary style. So they kind of, there's a lot of like interviews that that they kind of take them to the side, and they get to talk about like the show from their perspective, and the stuff they say is just hilarious, and it's all improv. It's great. Christopher Guest is in it. He's this very kind of like very low key, like he's got the southern drawl accent, and he's got his like kind of hound dog, and it's just like
is this stuff on the dog show that the dog shows that you see on like Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
because we used to watch those that's Barbara Woodhouse used to be the big trainer there, and she had a really high voice, and we used to we had a dog growing up, and we used to the big, I guess the big saying that she used to say is, because she used to walk the dogs around and look at them and put their hind legs up, and she used to be one of the judges. So, and she was a breeder and all this kind of stuff. So she actually said that she was, I don't know what's going on here. My phone is going nutty. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. She called to the dogs. I'm totally serious. You gotta look up Barbara Woodhouse. So she used to call to the dogs, and she used to say "Walkies," like with a really high voice. So we put that in for our dog. So every time we wanted to walk the dog or have the dog go somewhere, we would go walkies, and the dog would go spinning around the dining room table, get all excited, and then all of a sudden it was at the door, going like this at the door, and then we were able to put the so again, it so reminds me of
Yeah.
those old days where we used to watch the dog show. We
Oh
actually
yeah.
watch it now too. We actually watch it now because it's kind of cool to see, who places and stuff like that. But Barbara Woodhouse, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But she was a staple in our house, at least when we had the dog.
Yeah, it's a classic movie. I if you haven't seen any of these movies, really any of the Christopher Guest movies out there, they're all really great. But I would definitely start with Best in Show. That is one of the and especially with you have I'm trying to think the actress who was in White Lotus. You
Oh
saw her.
yes,
Oh,
yeah, it's
yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Jennifer Coolidge.
Jennifer
Yes.
Coolidge.
Yes.
Yes. That's actually one of her earlier films, and
She went
she was
she
great in
went
those
to
films.
Emerson. She went to Emerson, my school.
Oh,
She
she
went to my
did.
school.
Oh,
She
Yeah,
did. Wow.
awesome.
she did. She did.
Oh,
We were. I was dancing around when she won the Golden Globe. Was it Golden Globe? Was it
oh,
Golden
nice.
Globe? I think it was Golden Globe. Just
Yes.
recently, she just
Yes, she
won
did.
she won that movie, and she won that Golden Globe. But she was killed off on that show.
Oh,
She was
Yeah.
killed off on the show she won the Golden Globe for.
oh, that's
Yeah.
that's right.
she, I don't mean to say it. I'm not saying what the show is. I'm just saying it's so interesting that she won the Golden Globe, but she was killed off the show.
She made fun
So
of that too.
She
made
does.
fun of it.
She
She
does.
made fun of
She
it.
does. She does. Which is really fantastic. I would
Yeah.
love. And she was also just recently on a TV show that my wife and I used to watch called Two Broke Girls. And
Oh, she
Oh,
was.
yeah.
fantastic,
Heard that one.
fantastic show. Yeah, it's called Two Broke Girls, and it's about two girls that are basically broke, but they're working as waitresses. And then she comes in as this, dainty rich. She's not dainty, but this rich lady who walks in and just she is hilarious,
Mhm.
absolutely 100% hilarious. So it's very cool. But anyway, you can watch that show too. I think it's on reruns.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any more seasons now, but I think the show is over. But it is in reruns.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jennifer Coolidge. Oh, such a great
So
actress.
funny.
She's funny too. She's hilarious.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kyle. The next one that I have is a movie. This is my top one or two movies from the 80s. This is a John Cusack movie. John Cusack being probably one of my favorite actresses.
Yeah.
Actresses, right? Sure. Actors.
Actors.
Actors. Actors from the 80s. And this is called Better Off Dead. This is John Cusack. This is David Ogden Stiers, or Steers. I think it's Stiers. He's from MASH. Diane Franklin. Dan Schneider, and Kim Darby is the mom. After his girlfriend ditches him for a boorish ski jock, that's him right there. Lane Meyer, that Lane is right there. That's his brother. His brother got a book on how to pick up women, which is pretty funny. Lane decides that suicide is the only answer. However, his increasingly inept attempts bring him only more agony and embarrassment, filled with wild teen nightmares, until he meets the French exchange student across the street. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You know what? This is a guy that it also is. That's Armstrong. His last name is Armstrong. He actually was in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes.
And he's his
I knew it looked
friend.
familiar. Okay.
Yeah, that's Diane Franklin right there. When they go up to the mountain, this is one of the funniest parts is when they go up to the mountain, and it's funny, but it's a drug reference, so I apologize to any young viewers. So he goes out. They go up to the mountain. It's called the K-12, and he doesn't really. He's a good skier, but he really doesn't want to. He really doesn't want to do this K-12 because he knows it's dangerous. That's why it's funny because it's dangerous. So his friend sits there and he says, "Do you know what the street value is of this mountain?" And all of a sudden he takes a whole bunch of snow and he starts snorting the snow. And I was like, "What? Are you kidding? Wow, it's starting to feel an effect. I can't feel my right arm." It's just it's hilarious. It's the actors are fabulous. This is a guy that directed it was Steve Savage Holland. Directed it. It is Diane Franklin. Wow, man. Diane Franklin. I mean, this was my growing up time, man. This Diane Franklin was like one of my crushes. Huge crush, Diane Franklin, huge crush. And just a fantastic movie. It's a little crazy, a little very wild. But it is. Oh, the guy who you saw, he goes to work for a hamburger place. The guy who's the owner is the guy who owns Porky's. If you ever saw the movie Porky's, he's
Yes.
the owner. He's
Yeah.
the guy from Porky's. So there is some like crossover from like different from different shows, different people. Again, David Ogden Steers MASH. So he plays his father. There is a car that sits in the front yard, and that's kind of crazy. That has an interesting kind of thing that goes along with that. But just a fantastic movie. I would suggest that if you want to see any movie from the 80s, start with this one because it's very funny. It's John Cusack, young John Cusack. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, look how young he is.
he's very young.
He looks like he's 12.
It is. It's not his first movie. I believe his first movie was 16 Candles.
Yep.
But this is the progression. I know he did another movie. And I'm just going to mention the movie, and I think everybody should go see it. But he did another movie called The Sure Thing. That came either right after or right before. It's around the same time period.
Yeah.
But fantastic movie also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just very, very funny. There's lots of crazy stuff that goes on. There's one scene where they're in science class, and the guy that I just talked to you about, that Armstrong, that was with the hat, he has this jar, and inside the jar is this like little pig, and he's like squishing it around at his desk, and he's talking to it. It's just it gets crazy, but it's real funny. So I'm going to go to our round 3. This is our third round. This is our third movie. Milt, what is your third comedy movie that you want to talk to us about tonight?
I would have to say The Hangover. Great cast. Yeah. Bradley Cooper, Zach Galifianakis, I think it is, Ed Helms, Justin Bertha, Heather Graham, and King Jeong. I think this is a hilarious movie. Saw it in the theater. Everybody was laughing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think one of the scenes that really cracked me up is that when they are in the when they steal the police car and they find out and they're in the class with the kids teaching them about stun guns and tasers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The poor, I gotta say, poor Ed Helms, he gets the brunt of this. His tooth gets pulled out. He gets married. He's the first one that gets to go down with the stun gun. And the way he just screams like a girl. It's just hilarious. There's so many scenes that in this movie is hilarious. And then at the end of the film, they actually show all the photos. which is hilarious.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. That
Oh,
was
Yeah.
good. I like
man.
that. That was very
This
clever.
is the scene that that one
Oh,
where
man.
he doesn't go down.
Oh, that's great. That is
Yeah.
great.
So I would have to say that that would be my third one. Yep.
That's
Nice.
awesome. That is fantastic. That's definitely a funny one that's like crazy also. Like
Yeah.
the things that happen that are
Mhm.
really like out of bounds, but it's funny out of bounds.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, not like crazy, like scary or crazy, like, oh man, why did that just happen? It's crazy funny. So
Yeah.
definitely.
And then
That's awesome.
finding Mike Tyson's tiger in their bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh, that was great. That was one of
Yeah.
the first scenes that we just saw. But
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That is just fantastic. So, gonna move over to Kyle. Kyle, what is your third and final comedy movie that you'd like to talk about?
All right, so I figured I'd save the dumbest one for last. This movie is
Dumb and Dumber?
pure.
Oh, no, no.
Oh yeah, just no. I love spoof movies as much as the next person. Like I think they're great. You know, movies like Airplane, Scary Movie,
Naked
Naked
Gun, like
Gun,
Naked Gun.
Hot Shots. I had a
Hot
hard time
Shots,
picking.
great.
Yeah,
Hot Shots is great. Yeah.
and I almost went with one of those because they're all like really classic movies. But I figured, you know what, this is actually probably one of my other most quoted movies. This movie is so dumb at times, but it's so funny and very innovative at the same time. It's actually an editing masterpiece, in my opinion, in a lot of ways.
Really?
But oh yeah, now this is a movie called Kung Pao. Enter the Fist.
Oh,
Have any of you guys ever heard of that one?
I
I
have.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it.
It's it's definitely a cult classic. It's not a movie that like I would consider like a classic in like the realm of like Animal House or any of the John Hughes movies or anything like that. But as you can see, it's
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
one of the dumbest movies I think I've ever seen in my life. But my God, is it funny? It's just so the whole premise of the movie is that basically, so the director, his name is Steve Odekirk. He's actually good friends with Jim Carrey in real life. He actually directed the second Ace Ventura movie, When Nature Calls.
Mm.
And so what he did in this movie was he actually CGI'd himself into an old martial arts movie from like the 70s.
Oh, I have seen
Oh.
this. I have seen this. This is
Yeah.
so awesome. This
It
is
is.
so awesome. I have seen this. I remember seeing this.
Yeah, it's so silly. It makes no sense. And you're watching it and you're like, what? It's the most lowbrow humor you'll ever get. But it's just wacky and like
Oh my goodness. Oh wow.
I should have warned some of the viewers about some stuff.
Oh,
Yep,
what?
and he fights a cow.
What?
Yep, it's
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
a cow.
yep. No, the
That
movie
is
just when you think the movie's gonna go there, it literally goes there, and
that's
Yeah.
utterly ridiculous. But I like it.
good one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
it's
I think
Oh man. Oh, that is great. I remember watching it too. I remember going, "What is going on here?"
yeah, it's
That's
all over the
crazy.
place.
you
But it's
know, I can remember watching those kung fu movies, and I think that movie was making fun of all of those.
it was. It's like the no, you're right. It was like the perfect spoof, and
Yeah.
they even make
Yeah.
fun of down to like the dubbing because like
Yeah.
it's great.
The W is funny you mentioned that.
It's great. Unbelievable.
Yeah, like you guys
Uh,
have to also see the behind the scenes. They even show at the end credits kind of the
They have a
behind
behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So they have
I
like
gotta watch
like an
it.
end credits reel of like kind of how they did like a lot of the stuff, how they kind of like like CGI'd the guy into the movie and how they and it looks really good. It's very impressive for, this movie came out in 2002. Very impressive for that year. I was very surprised. That's why I consider this movie like an editing masterpiece. Like they just were able to kind of like they intersperse kind of like some new footage here and there that they filmed themselves, but for the most part they use like the old movie and they superimpose the actors. And a lot of times what they do is when they do the dubbing, they have the main actor. He's just talking. He's just saying whatever the hell he wants to say, pretty much. But then they're dubbing like whatever he says in the movie over it. So that's why they made it look purposely bad. It's fantastic.
That I remember seeing that, and it's so it's like it's not like it's kind of crazy. But if you ever watched Bruce Lee or any of those kung fu movies, which I think are fantastic. I love them. I think they're awesome, especially the Bruce Lee ones. You know, and then you have the Jean-Claude Van Damme ones and stuff like that, the kickboxer and the blood sport and stuff like that, which is, you know, further up. But you watch those movies and it's like, wow. But you watch this one and it's almost like a takeoff. It's a takeoff movie on it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so good.
It is fantastic. So my last one, and then we're going to go to Milton for a special kind of end of episode one. But my last one is actually from 1997. It's an Ivan Reitman film. Ivan Reitman from Ghostbusters, Twins, you know, that kind of thing. He's like absolutely brilliant as far as I'm concerned. He was brilliant as far as I'm concerned. But what, you know, you look at John Hughes, you look at Ivan Reitman, and these are the two guys. You know, we talked about why we go to see comedy movies. Well, if it's an Ivan Reitman film or a John Hughes movie, I'm going to it. I just want to see what it's like because they are fantastic. Most of the John Hughes movies and even the Ivan Reitman movies, they're like based on real stuff that actually happens, which I think is fantastic. And this was called Father's Day. Father's Day have my two favorite comedians that got together, not didn't get together too much, but got together for this particular movie. Robin Williams, Billy Crystal, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. A woman cons two old boyfriends into searching for her runaway son by convincing both that each one of them, could be the father. And it's just an interesting thought process that each one of them is looking for this runaway son. They're both looking for the same person, and things just get really, really wild. And it's absolutely fantastic. The comedy is physical. The comedy is great. Anything that's I would watch anything that had Robin Williams in it anyway. But Billy Crystal and Robin Williams. Billy Crystal from City Slickers. And let's see what else. The whole City Slicker, that whole section of movies. That's awesome. And he was also in let's see, he was also in a few other. He was in Soap, which is on regular TV. And just absolutely fantastic. I want to tell you a quick story about Billy Crystal and how wonderful this guy is. He was doing the either the first or the second City Slickers movie, and it was his daughter's birthday. And he called his daughter and he said, "Look, you know, I'm on set. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it, you know, home to your birthday party or to say, you know, but what I want to do is I want to say happy birthday to you. And by the way, I just want to tell you that there will be a package, you know, from me that's coming. And you know, I'm sorry I can't be there." And he was like talking to her on the phone. So later on that day, a package comes, and it's gigantic package. And all of a sudden his daughter like opens up the package and it's him. It's Billy.
I heard
It's
about
Billy.
that.
It's Billy in the package.
Yeah.
And she said, "Dad," she was like, I don't know, 8, maybe 9, maybe 10. She said, "Dad, this is the best present I could ever have." And it was just I feel that story. there are other stories. The only other story I want to tell you is really cool. This is when I started to believe that I really wanted to be an actor, which I'm not, but really wanted to be an actor, or I really wanted to get entertainment. Billy Crystal grew up on Long Island, and he told the story in an interview with Barbara Walters or something like that. He told the story that grew up in a Jewish home on Long Island, and he shared a room with his brother. And during holidays, Thanksgiving, it didn't matter what kind of holiday it was. All the aunts and uncles would come over too. It was a big, huge house with big, lots of relatives that came over. And his room, his brother's room, and his room was the hat and the coat room. And his brother and and Billy used to put on these hats and coats and go around and do these little skits. They did skits on the coffee table. They would get up on the coffee table, do these little skits with the hats and the canes and the coats and all this kind of stuff. And his uncles used to put change on his forehead, nickels and dimes and quarters. He said, at the end of the night, if I had $2.50 on my forehead, I knew it was a good night. And just that right there, I used to do that growing up too. I used to wear the hats and the sunglasses and the canes and walk around and do the impressions and stuff like that. It was just fantastic. Any movie that you see that's connected with Billy Crystal, I don't know any. We were talking about American Sweethearts. That's with John Cusack and Billy Crystal playing an agent. Just wonderful. Anything that you can see with him. Mr. Saturday Night was another one. Just fantastic, just fabulous. Anything with Billy Crystal, please go and see. So that one's called Father's Day. I wanted to go to Milton for a special movie that we'd like to talk about, a special comedy that we'd like to talk about. And there's a reason that we want to talk about it because it's very special. So, Milton, take it away. Tell
All
us
right.
about that movie.
So, Spaceballs. It's a comedy from Star Wars. And the cast.
Takeoff. Takeoff. It's a takeoff on Star Wars.
Yeah, takeoff of Star Wars. The cast is great. It has Rick Moranis as Dark Helmet, Bill Pullman as Lone Star. Princess Vespa is supposed to be the Princess Leia, and then you have who is it?
John Candy.
Yeah, John Candy.
Yep. John Candy and Joan Rivers.
Candy. And Joan Rivers
does the voice
Dot
of
Matrix. Yeah, she's supposed to be.
That's right.
Dot Matrix. She does the.
Yep. Yeah. So there's all these casts that are supposed to represent the Star Wars thing, and
it's also it has Mel Brooks in it too. Is that correct?
Mel Brooks is in it.
Yeah.
And John Candy, I forget what his character was.
John Candy's called Barf.
Barf. That's right. Yep. And Dot Matrix, she has the Virgin alarm on her chest.
Right.
And one of the funniest scenes is when Dark Helmet and Lone Star face off with their lightsabers. They pull them out at their groins.
Yes. Well, what's interesting is that this isn't just a takeoff, Milton. This is actually like one of those things where you would say something, and like for instance, they were combing the sand.
Yeah,
there it is. They're combing the sand, and then they got these big, huge combs that are actually combing the sand. So it's very, very funny, and it's a total takeoff on Star Wars. So keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
yeah, and the big vacuum cleaner.
Sucking all the air.
Yeah. So funny thing is that Daphne Zuniga is my second cousin. They used to live in Vermont. She's out in California. I think her big movie where she got her break was the one you mentioned.
The Sure Thing.
Sure Thing.
The Sure Thing with John Cusack.
Yep, John Cusack. Yep. Yeah. So that's every time Spaceballs is on, I will put it on. She's got the Princess Leia hair bun things, and you realize that they're headphones. Not that I'm giving away too much, but it's
no.
I
I don't think you can in this movie. You really can't give away too much because it's really based on Star Wars. So anybody that's seen Star Wars, I don't know too many people who haven't.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody that's seen Star Wars, it's basically a takeoff. So you really can't give too much away, except for the fact that it is one of those movies like Kyle mentioned before. It is one of those takeoff movies.
Yeah.
And it's done by Mel Brooks. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
It is very funny. And not just that, there's a lot of real like things that go on that are in the movie that you're like, wait, what? Did he just say that? What was that? And again, the big combs come out. Remember when there was a scene? I remember when they're trying to run away, and Princess Vespa is on the ship, and then they land in the desert.
Yes,
and they're carrying this trunk. And he's like, well, you can't carry all this trunk stuff. It's really hot. And I don't know the verbatim stuff, but again, you can't do that. So they open the trunk and it's this big, gigantic hairdryer. It's this huge hairdryer that's in the trunk. And it's like, you don't need this. And she's like, yes, I do. It's just like, it's very, very typical Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks has some of the funniest movies that are out there. History of the World Part 1, Part 2.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the parts of History of the World, like he's holding the commandments, but he's got 15 commandments. And all of a sudden, it's Mel Brooks, and he's Moses, and he's holding the commandments. And he goes like this. So these are the commandments. And all of a sudden, you hear this crash. And first of all, he announces, I have 15 commandments. All of a sudden, you hear this big crash. And he's like, I have 10 commandments. So actually, one of the commandments actually fell and broke. So now he's only got 10 instead of 15. That's the kind of thing that's just hilarious about this movie. But what's more special about this movie, is your second cousin, Milton. That's what's more special. And again, I didn't believe it. I went to high school with Milton and I said, there's no way. I went to his house and I said, there's no way. All of a sudden I see up on the wall when I walked into his house, I see up on the wall, or maybe it was up on I don't know if you had a fireplace. I can't remember your house that way.
No, we didn't have a fireplace.
So it must have been, it was on the wall. It was an actual note from Daphne and a picture. Signed picture from her or something like that. And I was like, oh, come on. No way. Come on. And we went to high school around the time that she started doing movies. So so we were like junior and senior in high school around that time. And it was just fantastic. But it's a really, really great movie.
It's a hilarious movie. The Schwartz be with you.
May the Schwartz be with you. Yes.
Yogurt. I hate yogurt.
That is the most favorite line.
Yeah.
Yogurt. Yes. Yogurt's good. It will keep you. You will have to. My opinion is that if anybody watches this movie, and this is one of the ones that you got to watch. You got to watch this movie.
Yeah. It's a classic.
By mid-movie, maybe even 3/4 in, you're going to have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You're laughing so much. You're laughing so much. You're going to be peeing.
Yeah.
It's absolute. It's absolute. It's almost like you said before, Kyle. It's almost like a cult classic now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's so important to get these movies out there, and especially to this audience here, because it's really very funny. If you've watched Star Wars, it's going to be hilarious because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to just take off on it a little bit. But it's really very funny.
The funny thing is that Mel Brooks played two characters. He was the chief guy, and he was
He was Yoda, wasn't he Yoda?
He was Yoda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yogurt. They call him yogurt.
Yeah.
It's yogurt.
Yeah.
It's yogurt, but he wasn't. Yeah, it was yogurt. Just a fantastic movie, very funny movie.
Yeah.
And does anybody else have any thoughts before we start heading toward the end here?
No, you mentioned about some of the Billy Crystal movies. I remember watching one of the movies that he played with Gregory Hines, Running Scared.
Running Scared. Yeah, one of my
That-
other favorites.
Yeah, that
Heard of that one, yeah.
was it was a combination of action and comedy.
Gregory Hines was in that too.
Yeah, Gregory Hines
Yeah,
was in
Billy
that.
Crystal, Gregory Hines.
Yeah.
They basically policemen. And Jimmy Smits.
Yes.
Jimmy
he was
Smits,
there.
very young Jimmy
Very
Smits
young.
Wow.
plays the criminal in
Yeah.
that particular movie. Just fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Very funny. Very
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. It was kind of a action comedy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like Lethal Weapon was, but yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it was definitely an action / comedy. I just brought that up just recently because we went to go see the sunset up here at I can't remember, maybe Newburyport or something like that. We watched the sunset, and everybody was watching it, and they were taking pictures. And I went over, and one of the lines of the movie is, "What's everybody looking at? Did somebody die? Did somebody did somebody drown?" And the lady comes up. Gorgeous lady comes up and says, "No, it's the sunset." And Billy Crystal says, Gregory Hines says, "So, no, really the sun is setting." And Gregory Hines says, "Well, I don't know about this, but I'll check it out. I don't know because they come from Chicago,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they don't know if I'm looking at sunsets in way down in Miami or whatever."
Yeah.
But it's very, very funny. It's a great movie. Please
Yep.
go and see it. Any Billy Crystal movie, please go and see
Yeah.
it. Because it's very funny. But Kyle, do you have any final things that you like to say about either the comedies or the movies, or maybe just something funny, a joke? No, I'm just kidding.
First, a joke.
No. First and last, a joke. I have a feeling.
I think we talked a lot about some good movies there, and honestly, that's the thing. Like, I know we were all talking about how it was. We had a hard time deciding. Like, we had to we were narrowed down to a few movies, and I say we should do like another episode where we can talk about more comedies.
We have to, because there's just not enough time to talk. There's just way too many. There's just way too many. But you know what? We'll have Milton on again, and we'll have to talk about more comedy movies. But hey, listen, we had a great time. Just want to tell everybody that we are on lots of different places. We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube live right now, but we do tape it. So if you can't get us live and you're busy, maybe watching the NBA draft tonight, which started at 8:00, which makes sense for you sports fans out there and you sports movie fans. We are on ScreenTime with Doug and Kyle on YouTube. We are also on Spotify. We're getting more episodes on Spotify, so we're on Spotify. There we go. We are on Facebook, and very soon, starting this weekend, we will also be on Instagram. So we're going to get an Instagram page too. So we'll be on Instagram too. So please watch us. Please subscribe and hit the bell. You get a notification a half an hour before we go live to see our episode. And we need more subscribers. So get out there. Let's do this. Let's do this. I want to thank Milton for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Had a great time.
This was a blast.
That was fun.
Kyle, we got to mention the other, we have a couple other podcasts that we do. Kyle does a podcast with Robbie called On the Couch Talking Sports. More often than not, they're not talking about sports, guys, but that's okay. It's all good. It's basically on the couch with Robbie and Kyle. But it's fabulous. It's great. And we also have Robbie and I also do a sports show called the Sports Blitz. Catch that. We have an episode we just did, I think it was last week, and we got more stuff coming down the road. So, again, I thank you. Milton, thanks so much.
Well,
Kyle,
thanks
thank
for having
you.
me on the show.
Absolutely. We had a great time. Thank you so much for joining us on Screen Time with Doug and Kyle.